Chavre, how are you? I hope everyone is well, gesund, stark und freilich begashmis v'ruchnis, healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. Today is a monumental day for the Jewish nation. Zayin Adar, Yom Hilula, Yom Eledes of Moshe Rabbeinu. Today is also Erev Shabbos Kodesh Parsha Zachor and Parsha's Terumah. We're in Chodesh Adar in general, and as usual, we'll speak Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, a thought for the week, and a theme which runs throughout all the concepts that we mentioned before. But as usual, we'll start with a pasuk from the Rebbe's kapitel. That's pasuk Ches of kapitel Kuf Yutes. Nidveis pei ritzeino adinoi umishpatech olam deini. Accept with favor the offerings of my mouth, Hashem, and teach me your judgments. We've mentioned this pasuk many times, and over here Rashi says that kol nedava, the pasuk says nidveis pi, the offerings of my mouth. And Rashi says, Kol nedava, every time we see the word nedava, losher ratzenhu. It means it's an expression of goodwill. So one definition means that it's coming from my free will. I'm not forced, it's voluntary. But also you could say that it means that it's coming from my heart. Nidvois, losher ratzen means I want it. There's a strong emotion involved. I'm excited about it. And this is the connection immediately to this week's Parsha. This week's Parsha is Parsha's Terumah, which speaks about the contributions, donations of what the Yidden offered to Hashem in the building of the Mishkan. And we learn a lot about tzedakah from this week's Parsha, fundraising, and similar sort of things. Rashi, on the pasuk Beis, right away at the beginning of the parsha, where it says that Hashem said, "Speak to the Jewish people, v'yichli truma. You should take from me a contribution. Me'es kol ish asher yidvenu liboy, from every single person who will feel generous." So over here we say we see a word that's not only yidvenu, but it says yidvenu liboy. And Rashi over here says, mamish, similar to what he says over there in Tehillim, that Loshen Edava, Yidvenu Liboy, Loshen Edava, Vu Loshen Ratzon Tov. So, whenever we see the word Nedava, it means goodwill. And over here, the pasuk connects it to Yidvenu Liboy. So over here, as we've discussed many times in the past, we're talking about Jewish standard of caring and concern and charity and social work, is that the Jewish standard is of a whole new level. So over here also in general, and this is one of the issues I want to discuss today, is that when we speak about charity, there's the bottom line, do the act, and then there's the heart, a Yiddish hearts. Don't only do it, but service with a smile. It's not only about the amount you give, it's not only the fact that you're giving, but it's also how you give. And you can even argue, based on certain sources, that Hashem looks more, not at how much you're giving, but how you give. Like it says, Echad hamamayit ve'echad hamarbe, u'belvad sheyichaven libe l'shem shamayim. You should mean it earnestly, sincerely. And like this week's Parsha, the Yichuli, we say li lishmi. Do it for the right reasons. Have the right intentions. So there's the heart and there's the action. And obviously the ultimate is that it's the action coupled with the heart. And that's really what it means to do it. You're totally involved. And it's coming from the best place, from a good place. This week's Parsha, I forgot to mention, I think I mentioned before, I'm not sure, Erev Parsha Zachor. So, it's well known in Chabad circles, by Hasidim, that this big deal about Parsha Zachor goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. By Chabad Hasidim, we've been making a big deal about Parsha Zachor for hundreds of years. Shabbos, Zachor, Chassidim used to always verbring, and it was a major focus. And the reason for that being goes back to a very famous story that happened with Reb Zalman Zezmer. Reb Zalman Zezmer was a famous chassid of the Alter Rebbe, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the story goes, how did he become a chassid? Because he was in the local shul in Zezmer, and punkt one Shabbos, and that Shabbos was Parsha Zachor, another chassid by the name of Binyamin Kletzker, who was an awesome chassid, he got the aliyah maftir for Parsha Zachor, and he learned the Haftarah, and he heard the kriya for Parsha Zachor, and Binyamin Kletzker, and the Zalman Zezmer himself was a special person, a sensitive soul, a spiritual person. He went over to Binyamin Kletzker after the laning, and he said, tell me, from where did you learn to hate Amalek so much? Like, what did Amalek do to you? Because the mitzvah is that we have to eradicate Amalek, we have to hate Amalek, and never forget what they did to us. So if it was something that happened in your lifetime, then when you look at a person and you see that he's full of this hatred because he experienced it personally, or his parents experienced it, or his grandparents. But if you're talking about something that happened thousands and thousands of years ago, how could you be experiencing that hatred so intensely? So that's what Binyamin Kletzker, that's what Reb Zalman Zezmer asked Binyamin Kletzker. So Binyamin Kletzker told him, for that you have to go to the Alter Rebbe. And that's what happened, that Zalman Zezmer went to Alter Rebbe, he became a big chassid Alter Rebbe. So this story goes back hundreds of years, and this has been true of every generation of Chabad, the talk of Amalek. And this leads us to another very interesting point. In general, let's ask a question about Amalek, for example. Why is it so important? Why is it important today in the year 2021, Tavshin Pei Aleph, to remember what Amalek did to us as we were going out of Egypt? There's no Amalek today. We don't know who Amalek is today. We don't have an enemy called Amalek. There's no nation Amalek that's threatening us right now, etc., etc. So what's the relevance? And this is a general question you could ask, which now I'm not going to get into the whole concept, which is about many mitzvahs, that many mitzvahs don't apply seemingly in today's generation. And it's a Torah of 630 commandments, and so many of them don't apply, let's say the ones from the Beis HaMikdash. So what's the relevance today? And it's a major question you can ask on two levels. Number one, maybe the Torah changed. Look how much is not relevant anymore. And number two, that means so much of it lost its meaning. Anyway, so the answer is, and this is a major contribution of Torah's HaChasidus, that even though on a technical level, on a physical level, the mitzvah might not exist anymore for technical reasons, doesn't mean the Torah changed. It just means at the outset there were certain conditions, and those conditions don't apply anymore. But guess what? More importantly, the spiritual mitzvah still is now and relevant as ever. So it didn't change one iota. And this idea that Chassidus teaches us the inner meaning and significance of every single mitzvah is so important that the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, wrote a whole sefer called Derech Tzisecha, that the whole purpose of the sefer was to talk about certain mitzvahs and to explain the inner significance of the mitzvah, because then it has more relevance and more immediate, direct message and lesson to be taken to heart and live with. And there's something that not so many people know. There's a Reshima that the Rebbe wrote, and it's printed in the back of Derech Tzisecha. He made a list of mitzvahs that are not explained in the book that the Tzemach Tzedek wrote. So the third Lubavitcher Rebbe wrote a whole sefer which focuses on explaining the inner significance of mitzvahs. The Rebbe then added another whole two-sided page that made a whole list of other mitzvahs of the Torah that's explained in Pnimiyas HaTorah, to give a person an excitement and to see the message, even though the physical fulfillment of that mitzvah is not possible. So here we see, just as a side point, another major contribution of learning the deeper dimension of Torah, because it gives us a mitzvah, all the mitzvahs, and shows us how all the mitzvahs are very much today alive as ever with their eternal messages that apply. So now let's go to Amalek. Why is Amalek so important? So in general, the answer is that every one of the nations represent something, some negative aspect to them. And there's the goy asher bekirbecha, the inner goy. So you have an inner Amalek. But sometimes we deal with something and we realize those are the symptoms or extensions or variations. And then there's the core, the essence. So in general, Amalek represents pure ego, pure arrogance, senseless stubbornness. Because right after Yetzias Mitzrayim, all the other nations of the world were in awe, in reverence. Oh, don't start up with the Jews. It will be suicide. They're different, they're special, because they saw all the miracles that happened as the Jews went out of Egypt. Amalek comes along and says, I don't care. I'm not getting impressed. I'm not getting excited. So they come just for the purpose to destroy that respect, that reverence. Even though it makes no sense. Who are you? What do you represent? And the reason for that is they have senseless arrogance because they have pure ego. Just like, for example, you have a person that sometimes he has ego, and you ask him, why do you have ego? So mistakenly he thinks he has what to be proud of? Money, brains, looks, whatever it is. So then you have to explain to him, it's true you have those qualities, but that's no reason for you to be arrogant, etc., etc. So it's a question of explanation. It's a question of ignorance. A person who's doing something wrong because of ignorance, you have to enlighten him. But then what happens if somebody just has ego, chutzpah, l'shem chutzpah? Why do you think you're special? Because I am. For no reason. He knows he has no qualities. He just likes to prove that he doesn't care. You know, I don't know what the name of this person is, but there was some person who had a mishagas that he would throw a pie in the face of an important person, or throw a shoe in the face of an important person. So imagine you have a president or a prime minister addressing the world at a news conference, and he's very, very Mr. Important, Mr. Revered, Mr. Respected. And you pick up a shoe and throw it straight at him in his face while he's talking. Who are you? Nobody. What's your claim to fame? Only that you were the one that made that him look like a fool. You took the icon, the one that everyone thought is amazing, the greatest of all time, and you made him look like a fool. Wow. That's your accomplishment. That's Amalek. He has nothing to him. He stands for nothing. He's just pure arrogance. And this stands in the way of action in general, and the way of change. And there's many things associated to Amalek, but they all come out of this pure ego. So, together with that, it says that Amalek is from the word Molak. Amalek, Am-Molek. Molak is from the word Malika, which we know from the Avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. When they brought a bird as a korban, there was part of the service of Malika, a concept of severing the head. But what does that mean in a negative sense? Amalek represents the severing of the brains with the rest of the body. That means even though you know what's right and you know what's true, it's not a question of the information. The information's there, but you don't care. So the information is in the brain, but for some reason, the message gets cut off. It doesn't come down to the heart, and surely doesn't come to change. That's also why Amalek we say is Asher Korcha Baderech. Korcha means he encountered you. But Korcha also comes from the word Kriris. He stands for coldness. Don't get excited. Be cool. Relax. So again, we're talking about extraordinary events, seeing revelations of godliness, coming to great truths. And Amalek just says, who cares? So what? Don't get excited. Don't get passionate. And there's another interpretation that Chassidus talks about Amalek, which I love. And they say that the word Amalek is Amalkuf, the toil of Klippa. In other words, Amalek is working very, very hard not to change. So in other words, he's blocked his brains, he's stuffed his ears, he's shut his eyes, and that's what he stands for. You know, like they say, you gotta have a lot of faith to be an atheist. In other words, you made up your mind that no matter what truth you'll be exposed to, you will not let it move you by one iota. That is what Amalek is. And for that reason, we say Amalek has to be eradicated. Because there's no hope, he's impossible. Every other level is about illumination. Show them the light. Bring light there. And once the light will reach there, when it comes out of ignorance, bring illumination, that will bring change. But what happens to a place which you've already showed them the truth, you've brought the light there, and still no matter what you do, all medicine, all healing, all sunshine, the person is insisting, that level is insisting that they're not accepting it no matter what. A psychopath. So what is the solution to Amalek? So the solution to Amalek is pure Kabbalah sale. Sometimes you have issues in life where someone has to explain it to you. Someone has to bring you clarity. Someone has to bring you understanding. That's in some areas of your life. Some of your weaknesses, some of the areas where you need development and growth and change. You need to learn more. That's one level. But then when it comes to some things, you're just plain lazy. You just don't want to move. You just don't want to change. So in those cases, you just have to have straight up Kabbalah sale. Just do it. And the answer is to be connected to Moshe, like it says in the battle against Amalek, to be from the Anshe Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu represented pure selflessness and loyalty to Hashem. If you connect yourself to Moshe and learn from his ways, to be one of his boys, which means absolute devotion and dedication to Hashem, that's how you will deal with your monumental ego. There's an aspect of you which is pure ego and pure arrogance, and the only way to deal with it is by having pure loyalty and devotion to Hashem. So I want to say Chaim Potak, sorry for the noise, and it brings out this point. I'm going to read you from the book that Rabbi Chaim Dalfin was interviewing the famous author Chaim Potak, and these are the words of Rabbi Dalfin. This brings me to your statement to Ted Koppel on Nightline. He asked you, why don't you take advantage of the opportunity to have a private visit with the Rebbe, or something to that effect? And your response was that your objectivity would have been absorbed or swallowed up. I forget the exact word. Did you say you were scared? And then Chaim Potek answers, I don't know if I was scared, but if I did use that word, all I meant was that I was concerned about how such a meeting would affect what I myself want to write about regarding this group. If the Rebbe were alive today, I still wouldn't want to go see him, and I'll explain to you why. I didn't want to meet personally with the Rebbe because it was very clear to me that this was a most unusual human being. I didn't want to spend 20 minutes or half an hour in the room with him and then have to rethink, undo, restructure my imagination after that experience. A writer does the necessary encountering for his or her work, and when he feels that his imagination has enough encounter with the reality that he wants to write about, he walks away from the reality and lets the imagination work. You don't let the reality overwhelm the situation, overwhelm the imagination. That's precisely why I didn't want to see the Rebbe, although Rabbi Shem Tov on many occasions urged me to do so. And it would have been very easy to do so. So, this is what a grown author, artist says. Chaim Potek hat a lichtige Gan Eden, there's nothing to talk about. But let's think about what he said. Basically, it's like the famous saying goes, when the facts contradict the legend, ignore the facts. You're a writer, and you want to write about reality, but you say, don't let reality intrude. Can you handle the truth? Or you just want to say, I don't want to hear the truth. So this is the idea of Amalek that each one of us has to a certain extent. And this is what we have to battle. And this we have to campaign against. And this is by every single one of us today. We could be exposed to a truth, even if there's a level of Amalek which ignores the truth. But then we go further. There's one level, like we said, Amalkov, where you're fighting not to even hear the truth. You're running away from the truth. Don't let me know the truth. I don't want to hear the truth. Okay? Then there's a deeper level. You even know the truth. But you say, I'm not changing no matter what. I don't care. I don't care. And anything which cools down the person's excitement and doesn't bring you to action is Amalek. And that's the connection to Chedesh Adar. Last week we spoke about Simcha, and one aspect of Simcha we said was Ein Simcha Katoras HaSveik, is taking away doubts, which is also connected to Amalek. But then there's another aspect of Simcha, achievement, accomplishment. One way to come to joy is to throw yourself into activities. Do more. And the more you will do, and the more you will do actions and achievements we could really be proud of, that will bring you the greatest joy. And this is what the story of Amalek's about. There's your lesser self, which is always preventing you from doing action. And then there's the other side of you, the anti-Amalek, which says do, accomplish, change. The Eibusher should help that the schus of the Baal Yemai Ledes and the Baal Yemai Lula, Moshe Rabbeinu, who's the ultimate model of how we have to be dedicated and devoted to Hashem, with the help of the Tzaddik Ador, of the Rebbe and Chassidus, teaching us how to cultivate our Kabbalah Seil and our Bittul to Hashem. This will hopefully moche timche the Amalek from within, and this will bring the Geula Mitzvahs V'Hashleima and will help us increase in our tzedakah, that the tzedakah should be nidvenu libai. We understand what's the right thing to do. It comes out in our heart with a passion and involvement, full of care and concern, and it comes to action. That Yisrael is nigal through tzedakah. Begula mitzvah shleima, take of miad mamish. Posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.